We are still in the middle of module 3. I mean module 2 last time. So remember what we did last time is we talk about what forecasting is, right? We fit past and present data into the model and generate the forecast at the end. Along the way, please keep in mind that we might make some forecast errors because we cannot 100% predict the future. We cannot see into the future, right? So that's why we will make some kind of forecast errors. And from our end, what we can try is to minimize the forecast errors. So the question is how to measure the forecast errors, right? And last time we discussed that we're going to use a MAPE to measure the forecast errors. And next, we learn about the 4 forecasting models that we're going to use in our project for our forecast. So I would like to go back to the Excel file to show you our work in the forecast. But by the way, let me show you where to get it, right? Because some of you might not be quite clear about where to get the Excel file. So please go back to Canvas, right? And if you click in the modules here, and we can, by the way, I should collapse everything, right? You should collapse it first so that it's easy for you to know which ones are here. And then you click in module 2, then you can see the forecasting PDF file. That's a PowerPoint. And then the second entry here is the Excel file, right? That we need for the forecast exercise. So there are hints in it. If you open it, you might see some yellow shaded cells, and the cells will have equation. So actually, those are the hints for you to try it by yourself. But I will try to put out the YouTube videos to assist you if you have difficulties in this exercise. All right, so I already have the Excel file that you can download it from there. Let me show that to you, and then we work on it. All right, so this is an Excel file that we need to go through. It is a big table, it is, and we have the 2
We're still
graphs.
seeing the website, not your Excel.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I should check that every time. All right, so this is a big table, right? And we have the 2 graphs on the right-hand side. So at first, right, you might see that, oh, it looks a lot. It looks like a lot of numbers, and then we did some mathematical equation last time. What is going on, right? It's not that hard. At the end, you're going to see that this table is not that hard to go through. If you just do it column by column, understand the concept bit by bit, and then everything is kind of feasible. And I would say that it's not hard at all for you to go through the whole table. So let me zoom it in. And then I'll show you the details, right? So last time we discussed the date, the week, and the T column. Let me briefly go through them again. So the date, right? Because later on we need to collect the stock price data of some company. So you need to know the dates. So from the New York Stock Exchange website, you can download some data. You can manually enter the dates here, or you can copy the value, paste it here, right? And then you have the date column. It's not hard at all. The second column is a weekday column, where we need to specify is that a Wednesday and then Thursday, Friday, right? So how to do it? There's an equation in Excel called the weekday function. You type equal weekday, and then you specify the date. You point to the date cell, and then do comma 2 for the option, right? For some of you, you might need to choose option 1 or any other option, depending on the culture, the background that you come from. Then you might need to choose another option. But for most of you, you need to do number 2, okay? So we can easily have the weekday column. It just the weekday is just what? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We don't have any Sunday or Saturday. We have that Tuesday because 4th of July is another holiday, right? So the market was up. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then we go back to Monday. Okay, so there are no weekends or holidays at all. And the third column is the time window that we have. So we go from day 1, day 2, day 3, all the way to the last day of the time window, right? So it's easy. Again, how to do this, okay? You just highlight, you type in number 1, 2, 3, highlight the 3 numbers together, right? And then you move the cursor to the bottom right corner and you drag it down, or you just double click, then you have the whole column done, right? So that's 1, 2, 3. And then, so the T column is just another easy column. The fourth column is the actual value column, right? Last time in our equation, we have the AVT, that's the actual value data. And the actual value data is here in this column. So how do I get this? And how do you get the data for your project, right? So let me show you the New York Stock Exchange website. You would type in nyse.com. Right, so connect to a word of opportunity. Okay, it sounds big, but I think it's true, right? A lot of people make a lot of money here on this platform. Or at least through the information that we see here. So in this case, right, you would go to the box on the top right corner where you can search for the company that you are interested in. So I hope you already have your group. If you have not, please work on it so that you have your group very soon. The two of you will decide on the company that you want to do the forecast on, right? So in this case, you can use that search box and type in, for example, if you want to do Apple, you do AAPL. Then you click on that Apple INC. If you want to do Walmart, you do WMT, right? So Walmart INC. Or if you want to do Target, TGT, you do Target Corp, right? Or you can do GameStop, whatever you want to do. Okay. So for most of the groups in our class, I predict that most of the groups will choose different company. But it's okay if several groups choose the same company. It doesn't matter. Okay. But based on your diverse background, I would say that most of you would choose different companies. So one group, one company, and we might be 16 or so different companies that you choose for the forecast exercise. Okay, so for example, if you click on Walmart WMT, you click on that link, then you're gonna see the time series of the Walmart stock, right? Time series is just saying that we track the same variable over time. It goes up and down like this, right? So that's the picture of a time series. In our case, we're gonna scroll down a little bit and find the historic prices. It says here 2020, September the 1st, right? But we want it to be, for example, 2021, August the 1st. All right, and we go all the way until yesterday, right? And click on go. I think by now the market in New York should be closed already, and we should have the today's data. Let me try that for you. So let's do September 1, right? And click on go. Yeah, we do have the September 1 data, which is today data, right? So in this table, maybe you see a lot of numbers, but you really need to look at the closed data column. The close is right here, right? On the right-hand side here. And together with that, you will need to copy the dates too. So maybe you need to copy the values here, the dates here, or to make it faster, maybe you want to copy the whole table and then you paste it in some platform like Excel or something, and then you copy the whole table and put that onto your Excel, all right? All right. So with that, we have the AVT column, the actual value column, and the date column, and then you can start with the forecast exercise as of today. After you have your partner, you decide on the company, then you can start collecting the data and you can try the equations right away, okay? So by now, we already have the first 4 columns. The first 3 columns are just a timeline in different ways, right? This is a timeline. And then the 4th column tells us the AVT, which is the actual data, right? And based on the actual data, we're going to use 4 methods to do 4 forecasts, right? The naive forecast right here, SMA forecast, SES forecast, the DES forecast right here. But to do the DES forecast, you have to have 2 equations. So that's why in this method, you have to have 2 columns in the table, right? And later on, you can calculate the forecast errors here. As I said, it's important to know the errors so that we can minimize the errors, right? All right, so today we only try to do it simple first, and over time, I'm gonna revisit this Excel template and discuss more with you. All right, so let's talk about the naive and the SMA model. So this is a AVT, right? The actual value for each day. And in the naive model, we're gonna project the forecast 1 day ahead. So on the first day, we're gonna make the forecast for day 2, on and on, right? So let me pretend that we don't have anything here in this column. Right, we don't have anything here. So the idea of the naive model is the following. We believe that after 1 day, it doesn't change much. So, or after 1 time, it doesn't change much. If you think so, based on the nature of your business situation, then the forecast for the next day equals what we observed today, right? But because we don't have the day before day 1 here, so we don't have the forecast for day 1. It's not available in the naive model. So that's why we only do the forecast for day 2 on, right? So the forecast for day 2 equals what we observe on day 1. So in Excel, you just do it as equal day 1 data. Okay, so that's why we have that forecast for day 2, and this is very simple, right? The forecast for day 3 equals what we observe on day 2. So we just do equal and then click on the right number, right? But of course, we don't have to do this manually every time. After the first one, you can just move the cursor to the bottom right corner like this, right? And then you drag it out, and you can double click on it. Then you have the whole column done, right? So these are the forecasts 1 day ahead, every day, for under the naive model, right? It's a very simple model, so the implementation in Excel is also very simple, and with a trick like that, then you save a lot of time. You might see a lot of numbers here, but you can do all of these numbers in a very quick span of time. Okay, trust me on that. All right, so that's the naive model. Does anybody have a question for me? Let me look at the chat. Okay, good.
And DGIA is Dow Jones Industrial Average.
Oh, that's a good question, Will. So if you, yeah, DIA, I think this is official, is a DIA. DJIA is an old code. For Walmart, you will need to type it in WNT. I forgot to mention that. Okay, when you do this exercise in your project, you need to type in the correct code or AAPL, right? And then you put the correct numbers underneath. That's how you have that column. Thank you for the question, again.
Okay, thank you.
So that's a nice model, right? I hope everybody is good with it. Let me move on to the SMA model. So let me pretend that we don't have anything in this column. Okay, so first of all, we need to choose the parameter k. In this case, we randomly choose it to be 5. Okay, so I type in here k equals 5, but of course, it's just the reminder of what k we choose. It will not have any automatic impact down here at all. Down here, we have to do it manually. Okay. All right. So in this case, we choose k to be 5. It means that we're gonna bring the data of the previous 5 days into the model to generate the forecast for the next day. Okay. So that's the meaning of that 5. So we go into the past by 5 days, 4 days in the past and the present day. So in total, we have 5 days, right? And we use those 5 data points to calculate the forecast for the next day. So because of the 5 days data requirement, we will not be able to do that for the first day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, right? So we need to skip the first 5 days because we do not have enough data to do the forecast for those days. So let's do the forecast for day 6 on, right? For day 6, by the way, we forecast for day 6 on day 5. So on day 5, we calculate the forecast for day 6 as equal, and you do average, right? If you recall your notes earlier last week or on Monday, then the equation says we add 5 numbers divided by 5. But instead of doing that, right, we just do it as an average function in Excel. Alan, get a question. Alan, for your checkpoint, please feel free to choose k to be 5. But after the checkpoint, you need to find the optimal parameters. And of course, for the checkpoint, you can choose any other number. Okay, you can choose k to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All of the options that I put there, right, from 2 to 9, whatever values that you want to choose for k. But that's for the checkpoint. But after the checkpoint, you need to find it optimally. And I'm gonna send you the guide on how to find the optimal parameters. The textbook doesn't have it, but in our class we learn it. Okay. So later, yeah, we skip the first 5 days because of those k equals 5. If you choose k to be 6, then you skip the first 6 days. If you choose k to be 3, then you skip the first 3 days. All right. Okay, so let me go back to the equation, right? So in Excel, every equation starts with the equal sign. So I type in equal and then average, right? That's why we call it as a simple moving average because we calculate the average. So equals average, and then you would highlight the data of the previous 5 days, the actual values, okay? So the actual value is in the D column, and the code on that is DJIA. It's not AAPL. AAPL is just the example code. So in this case, again, I do equal average, and then I highlight the previous 5 days actual values. All right, and then I hit enter. Oops, do I miss something here? Miss something at the end, right? Oh, I have 2 parentheses. That's why it's one. All right, so again, type in equal average, parentheses, and then you highlight the previous 5 days. And then when you hit enter, right, then you have the forecast for day 6. This is an average day 1 through day 5, okay? So you can do that for the day 7, the same thing. So equal, and then average, and you highlight from day 2 to day 6. Remember, the window moves down by 1 day. That's why we call it as a simple moving average, because the window is moving every day. Okay, so I'm gonna hit enter, right? Then I have the forecast for day 7. Any questions so far? I hope you're good.
No, no
and
questions for now.
Matthew,
No, I don't have any questions. Everyone was silent.
oh, good. Thank you for the feedback. So in this case, right, we can do it manually like that, or you know what? Normally, to save time, you only need to do it for the first cell, and then you just drag it, or you can double click it right from the first cell. Okay, then you have the whole column done. So see, it's simple like that. That's why this module 2 is called the Introduction to Forecasting, right? We're gonna learn more over time. I only try to do bit by bit each day. So today we talk about the naive and the estimate, right? So all of the numbers that you see here are the forecasted values for the next day, and we do this on the daily basis. So I encourage you to find your partners real soon. Start collecting the historic data, and then do at least the naive and the SMA models forecast, okay? And then you're gonna make a lot more sense about what we do in this table. So I hope you are good so far, right? I think it's a good time for me to show you the project a little bit, so that you know what I ask you in the project. So for the project, you will need to go back to Canvas. And you would need to click on assignments. The assignments page here will have the homework, will have the project, the midterm exam, the final exam, right? So that's a very important page. On the assignment page, I recommend you to click on show by type. It can be shown by date, where you see the time order of the due dates, right? But if you want to know what are the requirements for each of the assignments, for example, homework 1, right? You click on show by type, and then it's gonna show you, okay, so these are parts of the homework 1, and then parts of the homework 2. I don't have the other parts of the homework 2 yet, but you're gonna see that, right? We will need homework 1 and homework 2 for the midterm exam. So think about this as a package that we need to go through before the midterm exam. And then the project is what I want to show you. So if you look at this, then we see that there are 3 items here. The checkpoint, where you upload the checkpoint report. That's is where you upload your final report with the due dates here, right? To know about the project, you will need to click on project description. And then you can see the description right here, right? We can open to see it online right away. Or you can download it. So what we have here is the following. So our section due dates are right here. That's the due date for the checkpoints. It is the same due dates as on Canvas itself. Due dates for the final report. And this is how you would name your file, the PDF file, right? So I say here last name and last name because there are 2 of you in one group. By the way, you would register for your groups by going to Canvas, right? Let me show you on Canvas. Oh, I have to go back out. All right, on Canvas, you click on people, and then you click on groups, and then you will need to sign up, right? For group 2, there are already 2 people. Group 1 is only 1. So if somebody wants to team up with that person, then contact that person first. After you agree, then another student will register for group 1 with the first person, right? So you can find out more here. So please verify your groups real soon using the discussion forum, right? I hope you can find your group soon. At the end, if you cannot find your group, I will assign the groups for you. Okay. And I can see the records of the groups online. You don't have to notify me by email, okay? I already see it online. So for the project, let me go back to the project description. Then in it, you're gonna see some general requirements in terms of the format of your reports, right? And here are the contents, the point distribution. But you can see the contents that I ask you in the project here. The checkpoint is not separate work. The checkpoint is the requirement that you will need to finish part 1 to 3 by the checkpoint date. Okay, it's not extra work. I would like to ask you to do them early so that at the end of the semester you already have a very good progress already, right? So part 0 of the project is just the information part where you put the member names of your group. Part 1 is forecasting. You can do that right away. Part 2, the Little's Law. Part 3, capacity analysis. Part 4, lean operations. Part 5, Zero Dreams of Sushi, right? Whatever you see it over there, it's just about quality. So you and your partner will find more about it, discuss it, and then if you have any question, right, then please feel free to ask me. At this point, I can show you something about the forecasting exercise a little bit. So the data window that we have for forecasting is from August the 17th all the way to December the 3rd, right? So that's the last Friday before the final exam week. But of course, the checkpoint is in the middle of the semester. We don't have all the way until the end of the semester yet. So that's why for the checkpoint, I say that you only need to collect data up until October the 29th, right? And then do the forecasting up until that date. And in the checkpoint, you also need to finish part 2, also finish part 3. All right, part 4 and part 5 are not required for the checkpoint. And for the final project, you will need to continue with more data for the forecasting part. And you also need to find the optimal parameters in the final report. Polish up part 2 and 3 because you already did these 2 in the checkpoint, and you will need to do more part 4 and part 5, right? So those are the actual content of the project. So if you read more here, you're gonna see more specific information about it, okay? For each of the parts. Okay, so yeah, so please check it out. Then you would make more sense. If I just show you things today, maybe it's not very helpful. Any kind of organizational question about the project? So now you know the due dates, right? The checkpoint, the final report. The checkpoint is the first 3 parts needs to be done. The final report is everything together. Even though you did the checkpoints already, you should polish them up, right? Okay, so any questions so far? All right, take that as you are good. Let me, so today we move on to module 3, and when we have time, we can revisit the forecasting template, the Excel template. I recommend you to check it out. I encourage you to check out the template. Try to mimic what I have over there. Look for the yellow shaded cells where I have the equation, right? You just mimic the equations and you should be able to do the whole thing. Okay, so today we move on to module 3. Let me show you that module 3. Again, for the PowerPoint, you just go on the canvas, click on modules, and click on module 3, and then you're gonna find the exact PowerPoint that I have here. So this is module 3 about process performance. Process, we're doing business, why process? Because you know what, any company, any organization can be analyzed as a process. So we have a very broad applicability out of this module 3, okay? So business performance, you can call it that way. So I draw the content from chapter 2 and chapter 10 in our textbook, right? So it just say that this is a second edition, chapter 2 and chapter 10. The next slide tells us where we are. We're in module 3 out of 12 modules, right? The learning objective is for you to reflect of what you already understand and what you have not and what you need to learn more about. The outline here, we're going to talk about our process, an overview about process evaluation, and then process performance as part of the process evaluation. And then we move on to the Little's Law, and inventory turns and inventory cost is an important and interesting application of the Little's Law. So even though this topic comes from chapter 10, but it's a good place to put it together with the chapter 2, okay? It is related to the Little's Law that we learned. So that's why we're gonna do that in this module 3. All right, so that's a heads up. And now let me discuss the PowerPoints with you a little bit, and then I'm gonna go back to the whiteboard and do the detailed notes with you. So a process can be a set of activities that take collection of inputs, perform some work with those inputs, and then yield a set of outputs. A car factory will take in different inputs, do a lot of station steps here in the middle, or activities here in the middle, and at the end, they crank out the cars, right? If you are working in the retail industries, right, you have to source the goods from somewhere, the merchandise from somewhere, and then you need to put it on the shelf, do a lot of activities. Eventually, you need to sell them up on the in your store, and then sell them all the way to the customers, right? So any business can be analyzed as a process. They take something in, they generate something at the end. In the middle, we have activities, right? All right, so that's a notion of a process. And remember, all companies, all organizations can be viewed, can be analyzed, can be looked at as a process. So we have a very broad applicability here. In terms of classification, right, we might have core processes, we have support processes, general management processes, okay? So we have, in a factory, it is where we create and we create a car, right? We make a car, and at the end we deliver, we ship the car to the customers. That's a core processes. Support processes like purchasing, installation, research and development, right? General management like accounting, finance, HR, marketing, IT. So these departments, right? We have these departments in different companies. And that's why in our college, we also have all of these departments. Because what we do in our education is we would like to have you prepare for all what you do in the real industries, right? So we have different departments in our college too. All right, in terms of layers of processes, a process can be broken down into more detailed processes, okay? So if Walmart is a big value chain or supply chain, so that's a big process right there, where they stream the merchandise through all the way to the customers, right? But under Walmart, we can break it down into purchasing process, freight or transportation process, warehousing, distributing, and retailing processes, right? So, and under processes, big processes, we have further down processes all the way to the tax tasks, for example, like shelving task, you have to unbox you open the box, put the items on the correct locations, and then you have to price them up, tag them with the correct price tags. Sometimes you have to do the discount, things like that. So those are the small tasks at the very um, detailed level of the big supply chain, right? So we talk about layers of processes because if you are the manager at this level, then you are interested in these big processes. But if you are the manager of a store, you are more interested in the smaller processes, right? So that's your task. That's what you are in charge of. And next, I would like to show you a more detailed definition of a process, where later on we're going to use this definition to do our analysis. It is a chain of steps or activities with resources for the work or flow units to go through. Okay, so in this picture right here, we see a chain of activities or steps, right, or steps for the work to go through. So the flow units would go through, they would enter, they would exit the process. The flow units can be people, can be goods, or information, or dollars, or whatever you choose as a flow unit, okay? Information, for example, the order through the Amazon.com fulfillment process, right? Or emails, or bits of information going through the server, things like that, right? So all of these are different options for you to choose from. In terms of the resources like labor, capital, land, information, labor are the workers, capital are the machines, equipment, land, of course, we have to have the properties, the set up the factory, things like that. And then information like the software, like the know-how, or whatever it is, right? For you to know how to process the flow unit through. All right, so that's a little bit more details, a more detailed definition of a process. All right, so before we can analyze the process, we have to be clear about the process itself regarding two aspects. The number one is a process scope. We need to be clear about the activities that we want to include in our analysis, in our process, before we do the analysis. And then the second aspect is a flow unit, right? There might be different flow units out there, but you need to choose a flow unit that fits your business interests. Okay, so it's kind of subjective because different managers will focus on different things, right? So that's why I would like to bring you up to the example here so that we can make some sense of the choice of the flow units. I take this from our textbook. I think that from the first edition, I think that they also have in the second edition, right? So here's an example. Which of the following is an appropriate flow unit for a roller coaster at an amusement park? So just imagine if you go to Disneyland today, you either visit the theme park or the adventure park, right? You're gonna see some roller coaster. So the question for you is, what would be an appropriate flow unit for a roller coaster? All right, let me remind you that it's got a subjective on what you are interested in, okay? So from this angle, you might be interested in this flow unit. From another angle, you might be interested in another flow unit. So yeah, please feel free to share your thoughts in the chat window, right? At least I already have from Kevin, the seats are the flow units, okay? That's an option, Kevin. What about other students? What do you think would be an appropriate flow unit for a roller coaster? The leader, operating time, Brennan, operating time 2. Any other idea? remember the flow units can be people, can be assets, can be information, can be dollars, right? So, or from Rosie writers. And so it's up to you. So what do you think as a flow unit? But of course, behind your choice, you need to kind of justify why it can be a flow unit, right? A flow unit is a one that goes in and then that goes out at the end. So breakdowns from will, but we do not have the breakdowns here in B, B, C, D, E, F, right? Electricity consumption, employees, okay. Good. So I think that generally you have good choices as a flow unit, but you need to be clear about the aspects, the perspective or the angles that you look at this from. Look at this roller coaster from. Okay. So how about the seats on the roller coaster? Literally, we see it; it goes right, but that's not the reason why we should choose seats as a flow unit. We choose seats as a flow unit because we want to look at the whole thing as a maintenance perspective, right? Because today we put in a new seat, but then it wears and tears over time. After some time, you have to replace it with a new one, right? After 5 years or 10 years, or something like that. Then the seats, right, enter the usage process, and then it exits the process after 5 years or something like that. Okay, so from that perspective, from that maintenance perspective, from the equipment perspective, then the seats are the good choice of flow units. Okay, how about employees? Then we look at the employees from the HR perspective. So if you are the boss of the HR department, right, then you are interested in the employees, because in the roller coaster, normally they employ very young people. The people who want to make the second, who want to have a second job to make some extra income, or college students who want to make some extra income to help with the tuition fees, like you, right? So the turnover rate at the amusement park is kind of high, I would say. So one worker starts today, but maybe after 3 months, they find a better pay job. They exit the roller coaster and they work somewhere else, right? So in that sense, the employees flow through the employment process. You are the manager of the HR department. You are interested in that flow unit, right? The writers, of course, the writers is among one of the most important flow units that you might choose, because if you have more writers, you have more revenues, right? So that's why the writers is a very popular choice for flow unit. If you are the big boss, the manager of this roller coaster, then might be that'll be the index, the number that you look at every day, because with that you will have more uh, tickets money. All right, so the D miles per hour is really hard for me to justify it as a flow unit. I don't find any angle to see that as a flow unit yet. So I don't have that for D as a flow unit. But for E, right, it can be a flow unit. For example, we commit to open our roller coaster for 10 hours a day. You pay the workers for 10 hours, right? That's the plan for every day. Pay for the facilities, pay for the utilities to operate it for 10 hours a day. And then you count how many hours actually flow through the roller coaster in a day, right? Where the hours here are the actual time that the roller coaster is under operation, generating revenues, right? So if you see only 8 hours flowing through the day, then you're only wasting 2 days, right? In 10 out of 10 hours. So in that case, right, we look at the operating time so that we can try to improve it, try to cut out the waste of idle time, right? App or electricity consumption is another good choice for flow unit if you look at the cost side of your operation, right? Electricity should be a big cost of your operation. So you look at the electricity consumption per day and over time, at least if for the same number of customers, that number should not go up, or over time you find a better way to cut down that electricity consumption, right? Or you can break it out as electricity consumption from the grid, electricity consumption from the solar panels, things like that, so that you can cut down the grid electricity consumption. Okay, so from different perspective, you're gonna choose an appropriate flow unit. Okay, so it's kind of subjective, right? It depends on the business interest. So with that, I'd like to go back to the whiteboard and do the detailed next video. All right, so today we move on to module 3. About process performance. So the first thing is we have to talk about what a process is. So earlier we talked about it. It is a chain of activities. Sometimes we call that as a steps or stations or resources. Right, like the car has to go through this station, or has to go through these workers, right? Things like that. So over time, we will need to find different ways to call it to be kind of more realistic. So it is a chain of activities, steps, station, resources, depending on the specific situation. Okay, so that the flow unit can go through. For the flow units to go through. Right, so and then we can draw a picture to illustrate the notion of a process. So we have a process right here where we have the flow units coming in, and at the end the same flow units coming out. And when they come in, you call them as an input. And at the end, we have the output. Right. So if you look at a car factory, then at the end we see the cars, right? Oh, by the way, let me say something first. All right. So here are the resources, the rectangles. Sometimes we have the transit time, and the transit time is denoted by the triangle. Okay. So if we think about this as a car factory, then at the end we know that the car is coming out as output, right? What about the inputs? Okay, so we are tempted to say that the inputs are the assemblies, parts, subcomponents, components, things like that, right? But to analyze a process, we cannot treat multiple things at the same time. We only stick with only one or some clearly defined flow unit types, okay? So if we focus on the cars, then the cars are the flow units coming in. And those same cars are coming out, right? How about the beginning? Do we see the cars yet? The answer is obviously no. We only see the parts and components loose, right? But we just imagine that, okay, so that's how the components can be assembled together as a car. So we can say that, oh, that car comes in, it'll be transformed to different stations. At the end, it comes out in the form of the car, right? But just imagine we have a flows of unfinished cars coming in. and then we have the flows of finished cars coming out. Okay, so that's the notion of a process. The units have to be the same from the beginning to the end. You cannot change the units along the way. Okay, so otherwise we cannot analyze it. The next things that I want to mention here is we need to clear about the process. So remember, it's got a subjective definition of a process because it depends on our business interests. So the first aspect that we need to be clear about is, again, we need to be clear about the process scope. The process scope is tell us the activities that we explicitly consider. Right? We might abstract out some features of the process, but we retain these activities in our analysis, explicitly consider them, right? So that will constitute the process scope. And then the second one is the flow unit. So the flow unit will tell us what actually goes through the process, right? Like earlier, I talked about the car, the unfinished cars come in, and then the finished cars come out. So the flow unit is a car in general. Right, so that's the quick discussion on the notion of a process and how to define it. And the next one, I would like to give you some kind of an overview of process evaluation. Process evaluation. So sometimes we have to evaluate what we already have. You evaluate the other companies' practices, things like that, so that we can do the following. Sometimes we have to desire a new process, right? So the purpose here is designing. For example, you already have one restaurant and now you want to open the second one. You have to evaluate the first one and decide the second one to be better, okay? Or sometimes simply we just try to improve the existing, improving the existing operation, right? Or sometimes or on a daily basis, we try to manage it. So we have to evaluate our current operation. Okay, so those are the reasons why we have to do process evaluation. But then we can break down process evaluation into two levels. Number one is process performance. And we've covered this in this module 3, the module that we are at right now, okay? In process performance, we have some kind of external look on the process. When we say external look, it means that we do not need to understand the internal structure or internal working of the process. We only do some basic counting, and that will help us to measure the so-called 3 fundamental metrics. Of the process, okay, and because we only do basic counting, so this counting can be applied to all of the organization or processes that you are interested in. Okay, so we're going to talk about these three fundamental metrics right away after this. All right, so the second level of analysis is called, or evaluation is called process analysis. So this time around, we go deeper inside the process. So we're going to call this as an internal look. We go deeper into the process and calculate deeper metrics. More calculations involved before you can actually find these deeper metrics, right? So, and again, why do we care about the metrics? Because as a manager, as a designer, you have to look at the metrics so that you can design it, you can improve it, you can manage your company on a daily basis, right? That's the data, that's the statistics. That's a source of information for you to make your decision, to have your policies. All right, so that's an overview of process and evaluation. The bottom line is we're gonna do process performance in this module 3, and we go the deeper. Oh, by the way, I forgot that. We need to go deeper into the process in module 4. So module 3 and module 4 are complements of each other. We do it at the fundamental level, and then we go deeper to find other metrics, right? Okay, so now it's time to go to the core of this module 3, where we learn about the 3 fundamental metrics. So let me start out with you. So we have process performance. And we have, again, we have the picture illustrated, right? The process is a pipe like this. Where we have the flow units going through. Right? We draw the process as a black box. We do not need to know how it is inside, right? But we can do some basic counting. And with that basic countings, we can do 3 fundamental. Oh, by the way, I need some space, so let me move down a little bit. We can count 3 fundamental metrics. The first one is called inventory. Okay, so inventory is what? It is the number of flow units that are still within our process. Okay, so for example, the picture that you are looking at here is a car repair shop. And if we count, then we see the first car here, we see the second car here, we see the third car here, right? We do not need to see how it works. We just see that, okay, so we see 4 cars right now in the workshop. I would like to ask the whole question. What is an inventory in this picture? Please feel free to share your thoughts in the chat window.
The flow units.
Okay, she says the flow unit. Would you be able to be a little bit more specific? Okay, macro output. Employees, oh. All right, where do you go down here? Again, please look at the picture and please think about the inventory here. What is the inventory in this picture? Again, the inventory is defined as the number of flow units still within the process, right? So see, you are right, but please be a little bit more specific, right? In this case, we talk about, all right, so Julian, yeah, you're right. So we talk about cars. But I give you the quantity, please say the quantity too, right?
4 cars.
Yeah, you're right. So that's right, the feeling. The inventory is how many flow units are still within the process. So in this particular picture, we can say that the inventory is 4 cars, right? If you like in a dealership, the boss asks an employee, what is the inventory today? They can say, okay, we have 30 cars on our parking lot, right? Something like that. So that's an inventory of the retail process, right? All right, so that's the first notion. I mean, the first fundamental metric, the first piece of data about our company, our process, right? So the second one is called the flow time. By the way, I forgot to give you the symbol here. This is a T, earlier the I for inventory. So flow time is how long, it tells us how long it takes each of the flow units to go through the process, right? So it can be, for example, a car to go through a factory is going to be 17 hours or 18 hours. Right? That's the level of technology that we have today. In a modern car factory, we can crank our car from start to finish up to 17 hours or 18 hours. So that's the flow time, right? How long it takes for each of the units to go through. The third metric is called the flow rate. And that should be the R, the rate. So the rate tells us how many units going through per time unit, or we can call it as the volume going through per time unit, right? So in our picture, the inventory is I here, how many that we count here. The flow time is how long it takes from the beginning to the end, right? That's the time. The flow rate is how many cars going in, how many cars going out. And for simplicity, we assume that the inflow equals the outflow, right? It's hard to deal with 2 flows. So normally we assume that there's only one constant flow going through the process. So the inflow equals the outflow. And we call that as an R. So the R, we can say, okay, so 500 cars going out of the factory in one day, or we take in 500 cars. Right? Then we process them, assemble them to have 500 cars going out. So that's the flow rate, okay? It can be measured per hour, per day, per week, per month, per quarter, per year, right? Depending on what you are interested in. If your boss asks you to write a quarterly report, then you collect the quarterly data. If your boss asks you to do the whole year data, then you do the annual data, right? So per quarter or per year, depending on what you are interested in. So that's the notion of the 3 fundamental metrics, right? We do not need to know how the process is structured or how it works. We just do some basic counting. And then we come up with these 3 fundamental metrics. We count the units, we measure the time, we count the units per time, right? And we have all of these 3. So because of this general setup, it can be applied to any organization, any company, any situation, as long as you are clear about the process that you have, right? But why do we call this as a 3 fundamental metrics? There must be something important about this, right? So let me discuss why these 3 metrics are important. So let me save it first. So next, we talk about the importance of these 3 fundamental metrics. So we have the first one, which is the inventory, right? Why is that important? Let me give you one example. Maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I went to the downtown area of Pasadena. Okay, so it's a good place to be. It's a beautiful place. Downtown, the downtown area. And we stopped at an ice cream shop. Of course, to enjoy some ice cream. And to my surprise, there are only 2 seats in that ice cream shop. The downtown area can be very busy, but they only have 2 seats in that shop. Okay, why is that? Why do they put only 2 seats in the shop? Possibly because normally only 1 or 2 customers linger in the shop to enjoy the ice cream. And most of the time, the customer will buy the ice cream and then just walk on and enjoy the walk in that downtown area, right? So the managers look at the inventory, and not many people are lingering in the shop, and that's why we do not need to put too many seats in the shop. To have more seats, you have to rent a larger space. It costs you more money. To have more seats, you have to pay the city more fees, something like that, right? So you don't want to incur the unnecessary costs, and that's why my B2 is the best decision for you. And it is based on the inventory number. We look at inventory so that we can make the decision, the important decision on the size of the business, right? Size of the business. You need to make the decision on how much money you invest in the factory, how big it is, how large the property is. All of those are big decisions because sometimes it involves millions and tens of millions of dollars, right? And together with that, you have to hire enough workers. You have to have enough machinery, order the computers, if it is an office, things like that, right? So the inventory is a very important number for you to look at because that will help you to make the decision on the size of the business. If you already have an existing restaurant, but you see it is crowded all the time, and you have a long wait line, then possibly it's a good time to set up restaurant number 2, right? So that you can house more inventory at the same time, and then you can generate more revenue in a day. So that's why it is a fundamental metric, okay? It's important. The second metric is called the flow time, right? Why is that important? Let's look at the Amazon.com case. They ship the goods to you after 2 days, right? So the flow time in the Amazon fulfillment process is 2 days. So actually, that is a big achievement. We take it for granted. But if somebody asks you to walk in the fulfillment center to retrieve one item manually, right, without any technology, it's going to take you years to find the items that they ask you to find. So at Amazon, they have to invest a lot of money to have a vast network of distribution centers. That involves a lot of money already, right? And then they use a lot of robots. They have a robot rooms where no human workers are in it, right? The robot will will shelve the items, will retrieve the items quickly, and then there will be a conveyor belted, right? And then they'll be boxed up and delivered to your front porch because they have a lot of automation, a lot of technology along the way. So the flow time is important because it reflects our level of effective technology. So to compete with Amazon, then other companies have to ramp up their technology. And Walmart is doing that, right? They have the vast network of stores and warehouses. So they have the advantage to cut down the delivery time. So the flow time is important because that reflects our technology. And if you want to do it better to cut down the flow time, you have to invest more in our process. The third metric is a flow rate. It is important because what? Can you please give me a keyword to say why it is important? Possibly earlier we mentioned that along the example. Right? We talk about, yeah, okay, so I see efficiency. Okay, Solid, you're good with that. But then there's something, Alida, profit. Because the flow rate is tied closely to our revenue and profits. Right. And that's why the flow rate is closely watched. If it is going up, that's a good sign. It is going down, okay, we have to find out what is going on. We have to remedy the situation, right? Otherwise, we're losing our revenue and profits. So we're gonna discuss more next week, and I think that is highly likely that we're gonna have a Monday off next week. So I will need to check. I will need to make the announcement online, okay, on Canvas. So I would like to thank you all for joining me. Have a great weekend, and I'm gonna see you back next week. Highly likely that's next Wednesday. It's a long weekend, right?
Thank you,
Right.
Professor.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you.
If we have questions for office hours, what are they again? Your office hours?
So I have that all days, Monday all the Friday, 1 hour each. You can check that on Canvas, right? Monday from 3 to 4.
Okay, cool. Do
Yeah,
we need to make an appointment or just show up?
you just walk in on Zoom.
Okay,
Yeah, walk in.
thank you. Appreciate you.
All right, thank you, Theo.